So the second tip is, as the team leader, you got to fight the urge to dominate the remote meeting, because this will actually stifle the creativity that you're trying to create in that, using that first tip. So when you're leading a remote team, it's much more difficult than leading a team in an office. In fact, leading a remote team it's so more difficult. When a team is in a meeting room, communication is much easier. Not only are we communicating with our words, but team members are also, they see our facial expressions and the actions, the movements, the gestures. On a virtual meeting, a lot of that communication process is muted. You basically just hear the voice, and you may see the facial expression, but not a whole lot else. So when we're leading a virtual meeting, we may not get that feedback and the input that we need, or that we're used to, if we're used to doing in-person meetings. What many leaders will do is they try to fill in that dead space by just continuing to talk. And I'll give you a personal example. And this is kind of sad, but this is where I came from anyway. So years ago, when I started the Leaders Institute, we started out as a virtual company. We all of us, everybody that worked for the Leaders Institute was, for the most part, in a totally different state. And we thought it would be a good idea to have a weekly conference call. And this was before Zoom and FaceTime and all the group chatting things and that kind of thing. So we did this via telephone. And the first week, by the way, it was awesome. It was great. Many of the team members had never met each other. And I had each person just introduce themselves. And after the introduction, I had the team tell the group what projects that they were working on. And the meeting was just fantastic. It felt like, I mean, we actually felt like a warm team. About a year later, the calls were totally different, because I basically, what would happen within a year was, I'd speak for 5 to 10 minutes, giving updates to the team. And then I'd set aside time for the team members to update us on what they were working on. And I'd say something like, "So let us know what you guys are working on." And then I'd wait, and there would be dead silence, and I'd wait a little longer, and there was still silence. And since the silence was too uncomfortable, I'd just start talking again. And it got to the point where every one of those weekly conference calls that we were doing, it was basically just me talking. The meetings became a chore, not only for me, but for everybody else, because I like to think of myself as being fairly entertaining, but I mean, if I'm they weren't, right? So the fun was really gone. The only thing that changed, though, was me. Early on, I positively encouraged the interaction, and when team members added to the conversation, I praised them. In the latter calls, though, it just seemed easier to do the talking myself. So you got to be careful. Don't fall into that trap with the technology today. By the way, it's much easier, with Zoom and the instant chats and stuff like that we have. It's a whole lot easier to create that interactive environment. But you want to encourage your team to turn their cameras on when you're doing those meetings. Send them an agenda ahead of time, showing what you're going to be covering and what they need to be prepared to discuss. And if you do those things, then you'll have much better remote collaboration in the process.